John Stathopoulos and Josh Phegan come together in an incredible podcast, Grow, Scale, Master.
An energetic approach to drive progress, master skills, build strengths and put the strategy back into rapid business and personal success.
Backed by real-world experience in rapid scaling to playing the long-term game of business, it's the story of all the lessons learned on the journey to mastery.
Be inspired, renew your energy and chase the future with Grow, Scale, Master.
Con, if there is anything that really makes a business move, without a doubt, it's the skill to bring the right people together with a phenomenal strategy and to be known for execution. Those three words, people, strategy and execution, were put together by Tim Cook, the current CEO of Apple. What are your thoughts about the importance of getting this right in running a phenomenal real estate practice?
It's like basics. It's the basic plan to be able to execute brilliantly. So if you don't have the right people on board, I heard a really good saying, you don't want a rock star team, you want a team of rock stars. So people are the people that are going to be able to push the business in the direction that you want to have, right? But if you don't have the right people, then the best strategy doesn't matter. So they're intertwined, people, strategy, and then you've actually got to go and execute, right? So it's so simple, but that's the genius in it, is the simplicity.
When you first started your McGrath Parramatta business, how many people were on the ground day one?
Agents, property managers, the whole lot?
Yeah.
7.
And how many people have you now got inside of your border group?
223.
Okay. How does it grow from 7 to 223?
I don't know, Josh. I don't know. Is there a podcast for that?
Yes, hopefully it's this one. Right?
You know what? It's having like the big vision, right? To be able to work out what it is that you're trying to achieve personally, professionally. And then if you don't assemble the best people, the best people don't necessarily, by the way, I'm looking back now just in retrospect, our best people that you know very well in our business didn't come from a real estate background. Actually, for 2 of them, our 2 key people, Rachel and Riley, they had no previous job experience outside of hospitality or, retail. So hiring the best possible people and attracting them and then helping them grow, that's been, I think, a bit of the formula to our success. It's been accidental, but now it's absolutely on purpose. So,
but it's not like you started out and said, "Look, I'm going to get this to over 200 people."
No,
like ultimately, it happens one hire at a time. And
correct.
Sometimes it happens one geographical location at a time, right?
And sometimes it happens before you need that person. So, we're about to make a really strategic appointment. We've got the verbal green light on someone that's going to be responsible for transformation, that can work on all of our processes and systems and technology and agent and customer experience, whilst everyone else focuses on BAU, business as usual. So we don't need that role, but we need that role, if that makes sense.
And some of that has also come by acquisition, true?
Yes.
So you've bought a business.
Yes.
So you don't just get a person, you might get 5 or 10
Correct.
that might come with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Correct. And, some of our best people have come from these acquisitions and mergers. I mean, if you look at, Kim Brisky that works in our compliance, she's in our risk and audit team, and her responsibilities around compliance, right? Property management and sales. She was a property manager, head of PM at Rumour's business. Jasmine McGregor, who was the front office manager at Corey Skibberus's business, she now runs the internal experience. So if you walk into our offices and you see the coffee menu and the coffee machines and the way that, that the office is set up and run, that's her responsibility. And they've been great additions to the team.
How important is it for you to have a larger view as the leader about being able to help people succeed in both their business and in life?
Critical. No one really cares about what it is that you're trying to achieve professionally. I know it sounds a bit direct, but it's true. People will only care when they're tied into A, the bigger vision, and B, what it actually means to them and for them. So for us, whenever we're coaching and we're planning, we're absolutely looking at what it is that person can achieve. If we can help them on our journey and we can stack and layer on multiple wins, we'll eventually get to our journey.
So there's an old school saying that A graders like to hang out with other A graders, and the worst thing you can ever do in an organisation is allow a C grader to stay and to not do something, either performance improvement or potentially freeing them up for an opportunity elsewhere.
Yeah.
How important is it to like really jump early when you see something that's not right inside the organisation to get someone to either be right or to actually maybe realise that real estate's not for them?
Look, I think it's the way how you actually grade people to begin with. So are you grading people based on GCI or revenue, or are you grading people on character and values and, the way that they behave? So we do the latter. That's more important than the revenue for us. So it's really important because one rotten apple might spoil the bunch. But more importantly, it's about having real conversations in real time about, hey, this behavior or that action or, your level of performance just isn't where it should be. Let's work on a plan to be able to see if we can adjust that. And then we're looking at the behaviors that come with that conversation. And then ultimately, people either lift or they shift.
One of the big things, though, is that a lot of your A graders, well, I should say all of your A graders, are actually all in. So They're all in on coming to the Christmas party. They're all in on coming to Super Saturday. They're all in on coming to training.
Yep.
They're up the front of the room. They're welcoming people to the training sessions.
Yep.
They're doing all of those basic foundations. You often see organisations where that doesn't occur, where all of a sudden people are now too good to go to training or too good to go to that event or too good to do those things. How important has it been to explain the behaviour requirements of what we expect as you move into leadership roles inside of the business?
Yeah, I think it's been it's been really important, but I think our people just observe. So you'll see Betty Ockelander and Amit Nayak, both of our top agents, writing close to $4, if not over $4 million in fees. They're the first people to turn up to training, and they're in the front row with notepads and pens and taking notes, and then they go and execute. So success leaves clues, right? So for us, it's been more a everyone. I'm a big believer when you're going to an open home, right? And I say this to our team. I want you to visualize that everyone's looking outside of the lounge room window through the curtains, and they're looking at the way that you tuck your pants in, the way that you sit, fix your tie, do your hair, take your A-frame out. Are you having a vape or a cigarette before? Are you on the phone? Are you chewing gum? Do you spit? All that type of stuff. We're always on show. And I think, when you're a leader in a business, your job is to actually set the pace on how you behave and act. And most people will follow because they want to be a part of that, that business, that vision.
So once you've got the people right, obviously strategy is a massive part of that, about how do we actually go to win the game. And I was in the US over the break, and I got the chance to be able to watch some pretty incredible basketballers. And one of the things that I really saw there is that no one was bigger than the team.
Yeah.
So they're all coming onto the court at the same time. They're all doing the same warm-up drills and exercises. Even LeBron is passing the ball to another guy to, for him to be able to do the practice shoot of the three-pointers. How important is it that ultimately people realise that no one is bigger than the team?
It's critically important because, the team will always outperform the individual. And so you can't win. Like, look at any success in sport, right, or in business. There is not one person that's ultimately responsible. So even the golfer, the swimmer, they're solo sports for the most part, or the main part. They've got coaches, they've got teams, they've got, people that are mindful, responsible for mindfulness and nutrition and technique and all that type of stuff. So you can't actually go and achieve greatness without having the right team.
So with the right goals, you can be in a position that you can get a better quality idea about what the strategies are that you can go and really execute on. Yeah. But also to understanding what are our strategic strengths.
Yes.
When you walk into a business, an office, a team, an individual, do you look and say, okay, great, is there anything here that maybe this person's got as a super strength that they're not leveraging, that they should be leveraging and doing something with?
100%. All the magic lives in the gaps. Right. So even when we look at top performance or even a top experience, right, a great auction, what could we do better? It's not a criticism. It's absolutely a focus to being able to see what it is that's possible that we can achieve. So I think for us, when we're looking at, making sure that we get the right people on the right team in the right roles, we've got our strategy and then we're in execution mode. We're looking at all those little micro moments on how can we, adjust and tweak to get better outcomes.
So when you go to do that and in leveraging those strengths, one of the things to do is to make sure that people are very clear about what their strategies are this year.
Yes.
And so Macca's was, keep the drive-through line empty. So all of a sudden more people would want to go and order because they wouldn't wait to order, but they'd wait once they'd ordered.
Correct.
And so that could just be called keep the driveway empty. And so it's important that every strategy's actually got a name.
I completely agree.
And in our business, we've got some funny ones. We've got
Keep Josh talking.
Keep Josh talking. Yeah. We've got the Swifty. So there's lots of different things that we do that are specifically have a strategy in play. One of the problems that I see is that you walk into an organization, they've got 100 strategies, but they're not doing any of them.
Yep.
And they haven't really boiled it down to their 1, 2 or 3 big bets.
Yep.
Of they go, we're all in on these 3 things this year to get it right. And some of that's driven by the theme.
Yep.
And underneath that theme, there's some very specific strategies that you actually want to move to execution on.
Correct.
How do you define that when you're looking at the broader business. But then when you look at specific markets that you're either entering or markets where you need to build further market share and strength.
Yeah, we absolutely adopt that. So we pick a theme every year. 2025 was better is better, not bigger is better. So it was all about the focus of the one percenters. This year, I haven't announced it yet, but the theme is really tied into the strategy. So our top 3 strategies, and we're looking at them, from a macro perspective. We've got 7 offices across a large geographic territory, but guess what? People are people. So just because Epping is different to Parramatta, which is different to Castle Hill, which is different to Blacktown, we're still dealing with the same people. So we can have a macro umbrella over our strategy or the strategic, plans of how we're going to increase market share, whatever it might be, more listings, more sales, etc. Then we absolutely name each one of those themes and we put a tactic and a measurement to it. Someone taught me that very smart that I'm looking at right now.
I can't believe there's a mirror in this room. I know. So the next one after that is to then think about execution.
Yes.
And you get known for what you actually execute.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I worked out is about setting a deadline. So, okay, great. We learned that through the auction sales process.
Yep.
But we also use it in business. And so whether or not we're working a 3-week sprint or we go, okay, that needs to be done by the end of this 90 days or that needs to be delivered on this particular day. And I always think that, Blueprint's a really good deadline for us because it forces so many things to happen in the 10, 12, 18 weeks before that particular date.
Yeah.
And what I've really learned too is that I just don't set people on a quest. Also spend some time with them about really getting clear about the actual project plan. So what have we got to do? How's it actually got to work out to make sure that we can deliver everything within an inch of that delivery deadline? And then making sure that we get leverage because we get known for getting things done. So suppliers want to work quickly with you. People want to make things happen when they know they've got to do something for you by a particular timeline because it impacts on the additional workflow. That's a big difference. Is it important as a business leader to be able to set some time aside for execution each week where you're just working on the things that are really going to get momentum for the business?
100%. I read something over the break which basically said divide your working day into 3-hour blocks. One was about the BAU. So for me, in a leadership role, it's about being visible, one-on-ones. Maybe it's a recruitment meeting, meeting with my leadership team, whatever. Going to a listing appointment, a vendor. The second 3 hours, and by the way, this isn't in order. The second 3 hours might be, some deep work into a specific project, which is maybe the execution hour. And the third 3 hours might be, I've really got to nut this thing out right now that's popped up or whatever it might be. And so I thought that was a really good way of breaking things up because I don't think what we do, and I've definitely been guilty of this, is spend enough time thinking about our strategy, then putting a plan in place to be able to make sure that we can execute it brilliantly because you can't learn from it then, Josh. So you can have a great idea. I want to get from 5% market share to 25% market share in the next 12 months. Okay, how? Let's list through that. But if you don't stop and think and actually work about what's going to be the potential roadblocks, think about like your GPS, right? You can go from here to the Blue Mountains and you can go, okay, I want to go the scenic route, avoid all tolls. I want to, you can choose your own destination. But what happens when you get there and the road's blocked? Then you got to do a U-turn. You're like, well, what do I do now? So the problem without thinking about executing is you haven't thought about plan A, B, C, or D. Okay. And I'm not talking about worst case. I'm talking about things go off track. Things don't go to plan. Things that are not in our control. What's in our control? Dedicating some time to think about our strategy.
Experiences that rapidly shaped you.
I think the big thing for me was just to realize that there's a book for that. And you hear a lot of people say there's an app for that, but I go, well, there's a book for that.
Yeah.
So ultimately, over the break, I read 11 or 12 books. And the interesting thing was that I went and one thing led to another, led to another, led to another. And there's a whole range of reading that I've done. But each of them built a specific skill or challenged a mindset or actually helped you to level up to a different, way of thinking about something. And ultimately what it's done is it's given you a different level of perspective about what's actually really critically important. And I think that if people realize that every problem that you've already got, if you went to Amazon.com and you type that problem in, there's probably a book for that.
Yeah.
Where for $15 to $20 and 3 or 4 hours of dedication of your time, you could become a world specialist on that particular thing, gaining from someone's lifetime experience around that skill set.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think one thing that's not really changed my my idea or thinking, but it's kind of refreshed it over the break, is the power of focus. What if we all just buckled in for a week, maybe a day, a week, a month, a quarter, a half, or a year, and just put the blinkers on and worked on the 3 things that are going to move the needle personally, professionally, relationships, family, money, whatever it might be, that will actually make a change. What if we just did that? Pretty amazing, right?
Something that's changing your view.
Con, the big one for me is that I was just over in LA and I had the chance to go to the Intuit Dome, which is the new dome that they've just built for the Clippers. And so, you know, I was on StubHub and I've got like this last minute ticket chance and I'm like, I'm just going to go. And so I go and as I turn up there, you download the app and the first thing they want you to do is to upload your photo. I'm like, okay. And the next thing they want you to do is add your credit card. I'm like, okay. And they're taking you through this experience and all of a sudden you get there and they go, oh, have you got Game Face ID? And I said to the guy, oh, no, do I? He goes, have you uploaded your photo? I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, you do. And so now you can just walk straight in.
Wow.
So and as you walk straight in, little camera up, and then literally comes up, hi, Josh. And there's a guy there who's like, g'day, mate, welcome. And you wander straight on in. And I was like, okay, great. And I went there to go and grab a hoodie and a cap for one of my mates. And as I walked into the store, I picked out the hoodie and I picked out the cap and tried 1 or 2 on to make sure they were right. And I went to go and I was like, oh, where's the counter? And the guy's like, what are you talking about? You just go. And I'm like, oh, okay. So you grab a bag. And the cameras are all like the Amazon Go store that we saw back in Seattle in 2018.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden you pick it up, you put it in the bag, you walk straight out, it automatically charges against your credit card. And I'm like, wow. And so then you go into the little food place and you want to grab a burger or a bottle of water or whatever the story is, and you just grab it and walk out, and there's no credit card, there's no cashier, There's no checkout, everything's actually already done for you, and you walk straight down to your seat, and the whole experience is absolutely seamless.
Wow.
And I looked at that and I looked at the speed and the volume of people that they were getting through, and I really enjoyed the experience. And so I thought, okay, great. There was another game that was on a couple of days later and I was like, okay, great, I'm going to go. But this time it was at Crypto Arena. And so like ultimately I go in there and I'm like, okay, now I got to line up and now you got to show your ticket and now it's got to be scanned and now we've got to wait to get through. And then there's like 300 people lined up to get into the store, which was really small. And geez, I wasn't going to do that. And then like there's 200 people lined up at the pretzel place, like, you know, like, and it was just hard. And you know what it made me just really think about is that like, if you don't spend the time in investing in the infrastructure, the systems, the people, and the reimagining process, then before you know it, one day you're going to wake up and just realize you're really old.
Yep.
And literally that your infrastructure is going to collapse and just won't have the ability to deal with more and for you to be able to go and achieve more in the time that you've actually got. And so if there is ever a great conversation that's really seeing how real world technology can change day-to-day experiences to make it a better experience for you.